Hello, welcome back to the Villa View. We've run through the goalkeepers, defenders and midfielders that appeared for Aston Villa in the 2016-17 season. It's now the turn of the attackers. So Matt, we're going to start with Scott Hogan, £15 million signing in January. A lot of injuries, haven't really seen the best of him probably. How did you find him?
First of all, I'm going to say we've got notes again, so if we are looking down, we're not being rude. We've actually made some notes for once about each player. Scott Hogan, interesting one for me. I think that really it's injuries and fitness, and he's never really had that time to properly put a run together fitness-wise where he's had consistent game time, enough game time to build up that fitness and get to the level where he was at towards the start of the season for Brentford, where he scored 14 goals in 25 games. He's never really got to that level yet since signing for us, and it's a little bit disappointing, but then injuries can't be helped. I'm just a bit concerned about his injury record, though.
Do you think Hogan's one of those players that just needs a run of games, and when he gets a run of games he finds his rhythm? Or do you also think that, this is what I think as well, that Aston Villa let him down, to be honest, when he played? We didn't play to his strengths at all. We barely gave him the ball, and he's been in the team at times when we haven't really been playing well as a team.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that in particular the game that I noticed it most was against Fulham away. He makes some really clever runs, but our players are totally oblivious to it because of the restricted system that we've been playing this season. And when you've got a player like Hogan, he looks to play off that last man and come deep potentially, but normally trying to play off that last man, creating space in holes and making sure the midfield drives on. We haven't been able to play to that system yet, and I'll come on to it shortly with Jonathan Kodjia, but when we've tried him in that too with Jonathan Kodjia, it's not quite clicked yet either. But I think that we do not play to his strengths at all because we're not playing the expansive football that Hogan strives and craves.
So yeah, what you say is true, because when obviously we've played Brentford and not beat them the two times that we've played against them this season, they play a nice brand of football, quick passing, lots of movement, and that's obviously brought the best out of him. Do you worry about Hogan as being the man that's going to lead the line in Kodjia's absence next season, or do you have faith that with the pre-season he'll come good? Because I actually think he will come good. I think we've got a very good player on our hands. We're just yet to see the best of him, and his injury record is a concern.
Oh yeah, totally, 100%. I think we have a full pre-season behind him and learning to understand players around him, the likes of Conor Horahan, Albert Adoma, Henry Lansbury, these sort of players. When you learn to understand these players and what they can do creatively and how they like to bring the ball to you, I think that it'll work really well. I think that his runs are really clever, and I really do think he can push on next season. I think it's just about hitting that fitness at the right time, going into the new season, and I think we're okay.
Now it's a man who departed in January, Jordan Ayew, who moved to Swansea, and we got Neil Taylor in return. I was quite annoyed when we sold Ayew at the time, but now I look back with hindsight and think maybe it was the right thing to do, and that we got a good player in return and some money in Neil Taylor. What were your feelings on Ayew?
For me, Ayew's an interesting one. The start of the season, we sort of debated where his best position is. Is it in the number 10 role, or is it leading the line, or is it on the right wing, left wing? We never really truly knew this season where he was going to fit in, and we always sort of knew that if anyone was going to leave, it would be him. The way it went about, I was a bit disappointed as well, like you, in terms of the way he left in this swap deal, but I think in hindsight, we benefited quite well from it. That we've got a solid left back in Neil Taylor, and we've still got competent strikers up front for that. And really, did he offer that much, or did he really excel to his full potential in those few months before he left? I don't know if he did for me. I know he was bench ridden at times, but for me, I don't think he did quite enough to be justifying keeping him at the club in the Championship in particular.
See, I think he actually got off to a decent start to this season without necessarily getting his just deserves for his work rate. I don't think he scored a goal actually for us in the Championship, which is quite poor, because he is a player that I think I was looking at this last season and thinking Jordan Ayew should be someone that's too good for the Championship, and in the end, like Amavi a bit, it turned out that he wasn't too good for the Championship. I think he got off to a good start and was actually given quite a lot of criticism from the Villa fans. There was people saying that he wasn't putting in the work, when to me, his demeanour probably makes it look like he's working less hard than he actually is, because I think getting around the pitch, he probably put more in than a lot of people in those first few months. Again, I think maybe style of football has stifled him, as we could say, with a lot of our attacking players, but he goes with my best wishes, to be fair, still, because the season before the one just gone, he was one of the only ones that put in any effort in the Premier League, and he was one of the only shining lights. And as I say, I really wanted him to stay, but with hindsight, we've got Neil Taylor. He's gone to Swansea, not particularly tore up many trees, so with hindsight, it's a decent deal, but I wish him well. Next up, it's your favourite ever Aston Villa player, Mr. Gabby Agbonlahor. I've got 3 words to start with here. Birmingham at home. I'm hoping you're going to expand on it a bit more.
What can you actually say about this guy? I mean, I'm not eating humble pie over him, but when it matters, he's there. He did a good job against Birmingham City, and when he came on a few times, he rustled a few feathers against teams. But for me, my opinion's quite open about Gabby Agbonlahor. It's out there to see. And to be fair, I take my hat off to him for what he did against Birmingham City. I really do. And for him to put himself back in contention for that game, it does take a lot. And I take my hat off to him for that. But overall, over the course of the season, I'm disappointed in him. He's a professional football player that's under contract to be fit throughout the Premier League, throughout the Championship season. Was he that? No. It's disappointing that he had to go on diet plans and whatever else. It's disappointing that somebody supposedly the model professional at the football club has had to do that. And for me, when he's one of the highest earners as well, it's just disappointing overall. It doesn't set the right role models for the players that are coming through the academy either. But like I say, it can't be forgotten what he did in the Derby game.
He has got himself in a reasonable condition now. If you look at him on Instagram at the moment, he looks like he's putting in the hard yards on his summer break. I think he is in back to the kind of shape that he should be in. I mean, I'm not going to give him any excuses for the season before. That was shocking. But last season he got obviously froze out by Di Matteo, but he's shown that he's got way beyond 9 lives. The way he's come back into the team, and as you say, he did make an impact in games. I remember Preston at home in the first half. He played well, made a goal for a Doma, and then got injured. That's the problem with him for me. I think he gets too many injuries, but I do think he could still end up being useful at this level. But with 1 year left on his contract, I don't think we can justify giving him a new deal unless he does something very, very special next season. I think the one thing with that Agbonlahor, I think Steve Bruce deserves a lot of credit with him, because Gabby was a write-off before Bruce came in, but Bruce, perhaps falsely, talked him up a lot, made out as if he could be one of the best strikers in the league, and he's talked him up all season because I think he knew at some point he would probably need him, and at that one point when he needed him against Birmingham, he stepped up and got us the 3 points, and that's what he'll be remembered for now. So I think Bruce deserves a lot of credit. I think from that point of view, his man management was absolutely spot on with Gabby Agbonlahor. Now we've got a player with possibly one of the worst win ratios in football. Rudy Gestede departed in January for Middlesbrough because he felt he was a Premier League player and wanted to be a Premier League player. Rudy Gestede will find himself in the Championship next season. How did you find him?
I mean, I think we sold him at the wrong time. I think we discussed this one, didn't we? Back in January, and I know you vouched for that we sold him at the wrong time. And looking back, I think we did, to be honest, because we didn't end up signing a striker till deadline day. That was a bad move in the first place for doing that. But really, this season, I've put down the fact that he didn't actually do that much. He was an impact sub at best. And to get the money back that we did for him, I thought it was good business in the end of the day. And I think that's the main point you can take from it. He scored the 4 goals beforehand. I think he scored a pretty brilliant goal against Nottingham Forest in the 2-2 draw at home towards the start of the season. And I honestly expected more from him this season. I don't know if it was the style of football that we played and Di Matteo didn't suit him or not.
He just didn't seem to be able to move. Like, he made Gabby last season look rapid, to be honest. He just didn't move, didn't really offer anything. And obviously, I think he thinks maybe he's better than he is. What struck me was when he departed, we seemed to suddenly want to knock the ball up in the air and get crosses in, which didn't really suit us. So maybe if we'd have done that a bit more when Gestede was with us, he may have been more useful. But he's a player I was not. The timing was wrong to sell him because we were short up front with AFCON and injuries and whatever else. We let him go at the wrong time, but letting him go was the right decision, because to me, he should have offered more in the Championship. And if Villa ever want to get anywhere, having players like him in the squad, he's too limited. He's not good enough for me.
Yeah, one-dimensional, I'd say, and I just don't think we played the football to suit him either.
All true, and someone else who's just left us is Aleksandar Kozak. Feel sorry for the guy. Only had to look at a football and he'd get injured, and the one time we saw him this season, he came on a sub against Derby away early on in the season, and he just looked lost.
I feel for him. I think his career's been ruined by the first injury. Came to the club, Europa League top scorer. It's no mean feat, by any stretch of the imagination. Played for Lazio, highly respected side, obviously, in Italy. And then to come to Villa Park and get the injuries he's got, it's just, you say about Gabby with his 9 lives, Aleksandar Kozak had 9 and he lost them before God, 2 years ago, I think he'd lost all of them, and he's just sort of been waiting for that contract to run out. I feel really sorry for him, to be honest, and I don't know what's going to happen with his career next. Perhaps he could retire because of all these injuries, but I really do feel sorry for him because similar style of player to Gestede, but I think Kozak actually had a decent pair of feet as well, and I think he scored a really good goal during pre-season 2 years ago that proved that. It says it all though, doesn't it? He scored a goal in pre-season. I think that sums up the lot of game time that he'd been able to pick up during his time at Villa because of injuries.
He's actually a decent finisher, Kozak. He did score some decent goals in his first season before he got injured, and we have seen glimpses in the reserves and in pre-season that he could have been useful, but like you say, injuries have absolutely destroyed him, curtailed him, and he goes with Villa fans' best wishes probably, and we can only wonder what would have happened with him had he not got injured. Right, and another one that's left us at the start of the season, we touched on him briefly in the midfielders video when we were talking about Adama Traore, if he stays at Middlesbrough, will find himself in the Championship next season as well. What did you make of him in the 20 minutes we saw of him?
I actually googled this to find out exactly how long he was on the pitch for, and it was 16 minutes and I think around 30 seconds or something daft. Look, he is the definition of a one-trick pony, to be honest. A lot of pace, but the end product, Christ, it was missing, wasn't it? And we saw it with Middlesbrough. It was exactly the same, and we laugh now, but really all he did was run with the ball, and then, well, went a bit belly up by the time he got anywhere near where he could be productive with the ball.
Well, I think he was told he actually had a future at Villa when Di Matteo came in, but I think he wanted to go, decided he was bigger than the Championship. And I remember that Rotherham game. I remember him coming on. He did a big run, where one of his powerful runs that he so often does do, to be fair to him, went past 3 players and then just rolled the ball into the goalkeeper's arms, and that's the problem with him. He's a real match of the day player. He'll look good on Match of the Day or Channel 5 or wherever, but his end product is lacking, and I actually don't think he'll ever go on to achieve anything major in the game. I think he'll go back to Spain at some point and flit around teams there. I remember Karanka saying that he had to change Traore's wing at half time so that he was always on the side of the manager so he could give him instructions. That's the problem with him. Defensively he offers absolutely nothing, and he can't follow instruction, and for me, swapping him for Adama, who is a very effective player in the Championship when on form, we got the better end of that deal, and I honestly don't think he'll ever go on and do anything.
One quick one. Antonio Conte was actually rumoured to be interested in Adama Traore to make him into a wing back. Food for thought, that one is.
He would be the worst wing back that I think you could ever see. He'd be to wing backs what you are to penalties.
Fair assumption. I'll admit that one.
Right, so now our talisman, the Villa View Player of the Year, Jonathan Kodjia. We've already gone into quite a lot of detail with him in previous videos, but can you sum up how important he was for Aston Villa this season?
Where would we be without him right now? Like, I'd love to work out where we'd actually be positionally if you took away his 19 goals this season, where we'd be sat. I dread to think, to be honest. I think that there's plenty of games where we won 1-0 and he scored the all-important goal. I know you touched on in the podcast midweek about how I called him made us a one-man team, but I still stand by that point. I got your points in the podcast where you said about defensively that we had to be solid to grind out these 1-0 wins, but then you look at it and you go, well, if you remove Jonathan Kodjia from that game, it'd been 0-0, and then you drop down the points that we'd lost there and really would still be in a difficult position. But that says a lot for me. It's so important to us. Unfortunate not to hit the 20 goals. That sending off was balmy. It should never have happened. It's just unfortunate that the African Cup of Nations was this season, because if not, I really do think that over that period where we struggled, I don't think we'd have struggled half as much with him in our side. Yeah,
that's everything you've said there is more than fair. He can be frustrating at times. If he's got a weak point, it's his passing, but the rest of his game is spot on for me. He scores all kinds of goals. Good in the air, good with his feet, tricky, fast. I think I can't remember if I said strong or not already. Just an all-round very good striker, and people laughed when we paid the money we did for him, but nobody's laughing now because we've now got one of the most dangerous strikers in the Championship, and to me, he can go on and be a good, effective Premier League player, hopefully with Aston Villa. His injuries going into next season is very disappointing because obviously we're without our talisman for the start, but 19 goals in 36 games in your first season, a new team, that's a great record, and he seems very good in the dressing room as well, very popular with the fans, very popular with the players and the coaching staff. So to me, he can't get back quick enough, and the real shining light from Aston Villa's first Championship season.
I tell you what, as well, though, worth noting, for all his greediness, he does not work hard as well. He works his arse off in chasing that ball down as well. He's one of these players that you think, oh, he's going to be the lazy one that stands on the halfway line, but he really isn't as well. I think that's worth pointing out as well.
I've wrote down here, but not said it yet, that a lot of strikers sulk when they get put out wide, but Kodjia didn't. He just got on with it, and he thrived there as well, and did a good job on the wing. Scored a lot of goals from the wing for us as well. So he's a really, really good player and a good pro, and really pleased with him. Now we've got a player who I think's got a very, very big future, but pretty much had a write-off season for reasons that I'm sure you'll go into. Rushy and Hepburn Murphy.
The whole contract saga was utterly stupid. That really didn't help him, because Bruce is obviously going to freeze him out if he's not signed the contract. But now he's signed that contract, I think he can really push on. I think that it's a shame that possibly his agent was in his ear around January time going, look, you can get a move. He was linked with Rangers in particular, which would have been a balmy move, to say the least, for him. But for me, I'm glad he's sticking around. I'm really relieved he signed that contract. I think he's probably badly advised. I don't think it's him personally that wanted to get that move away. I think he was probably badly advised. And I think that's really important we nurture him and we develop that talent, because he came on against Fulham in particular and really did put himself about a bit. He wasn't scared to go for stuff. I know in that game you had Ryan Sessegnon, who's 16 years old, playing for Fulham. Rushy Hepburn Murphy, also a few years older, similar build though, like Sessegnon. Rushy Hepburn Murphy wasn't scared to try and take on players in that game and do something and try and create something, despite the position Villa were in at that point.
The contract thing was an absolute disaster, and at the wrong time. It was around the time we got Rudy Gestede, and we were short on strikers with the African Cup of Nations again, and he was stalling on what I think was a very good contract offer. I actually remember him coming on against Newcastle at home. I think it was in September, and he helped turn that game in our favour. Actually, we were losing 1-0 and we scored late through Tishibola, but Hepburn Murphy, he showed no fear, as you said, and that was the best team in the Championship he was playing against. So he's obviously shown that he is someone who can make an impact. The contract thing hindered him. That all happened at the wrong time. Then he got injuries at the wrong time as well. I think he'll get a shot at the start of next season. I think he'll start the season in the matchday squad and perhaps be used as an impact sub, and he's got a real chance of doing something next season. I just hope he takes it. People have had question marks over his attitude in the past. I'm not sure how well founded they are, but finally for a season, after a season where he's not been able to concentrate purely on his football, he's got a season now to concentrate on his football, and I'm really hopeful that he can be one of the better players to come out of our academy. Another guy who came through the academy and actually made a good impact on the last day against Brighton, Keenan Davis. Sum him up.
I think he's got the attributes to be a really good player. He's obviously come the unconventional route to Villa Park. Was at Biggleswade Town United, I want to say, one of those two. Got brought to us, I think it was only a year ago now, wasn't it? A year and a half ago. And he's progressed really quickly. I think his build is perfect. He'll probably bulk out a bit more, but I think he's a similar build to Jonathan Kodjia, and he's got a similar style about him as well. He'll bully defenders. And in particular, that last game of the season, he really did give the Brighton defenders something to be concerned about, and he really put himself about it a bit and created chances for us in that game. It was really unfortunate not to score as well. I think he got a lot to take away from his performance that day, and potentially he could turn Rushy Hepburn Murphy as the top striker from the academy to come through at the club at the moment.
Well, he got chucked on in previous games when games were gone, in my opinion, when we were losing, and you couldn't really suss him out because he didn't really touch the ball. But I really liked what I saw against Brighton. I thought, for example, his hold-up play was far superior than Rudy Gestede's hold-up play, for example, and Gestede made a big impact in this league in the past. So the signs are good for Davis. I don't know whether maybe a loan next season would be beneficial to him, especially if the man we're coming on to next, Ross McCormack, comes back. We've got Hogan, we've got Gabby. Hepburn Murphy's probably ahead of Davis in the pecking order, and then Kodjia to come back from injury. I think perhaps a loan move to one league down for Davis might do him good, but the signs are there for him. I was really, really impressed with him on the last day. I think if he'd had a bit more composure against Brighton, he would have had a goal, because he did have some decent chances, but his all-round performance was very good, and that augurs well for the future. I just mentioned his name, someone that ended the season having some kind of weird surgery, actually, but he did get loaned out to Forest after becoming a big signing for Villa in the summer. Ross McCormack, I don't really know what to say here. I'm hoping you're going to say something.
I'm disappointed in the last season. I know we talked about in the video in particular a few months ago now about he might have his own personal demons behind what's happened, because no player scores more goals than any other player in the Championship the three previous seasons. Then turns up at Villa Park and there's not much. I'm willing to give him the second bite of the cherry next season. I do think he deserves that chance, because if you have him on form, he's a top striker. He really is still a top striker. He's never relied on pace in his game. His overall ability is what matters. He's never relied on the pace. So I think we've still got a player there and we have to try and utilise him. I think Bruce has had peace talks with him, apparently, it said in the paper this week. If that's gone well, then I can only hope that he proves us all wrong, because there's a lot of fans that are agitated and angry with him after the last season, and I really do think he could push on. I'm just disappointed the way it's gone for him this season.
I think you're right. I think if he comes back, the fans have got to give him a chance. If it's good enough for Bruce, then it should be good enough for us as fans. I think I don't know this, but you could argue, was he ever played in his strongest position in a proper, with a strike pairing? Because he always seemed to me to be playing a bit deeper than that and playing in the number 10 role. He is a good player. He's an intelligent player, and he's someone I think could actually link up quite well with Scott Hogan, because I think he'd find Hogan with his passing range and Hogan's movement and mobility. It could also be that it is a touch of the Hogans with McCormack. The fact that Villa actually just didn't play in a style and a way that was to make McCormack flourish. I think it could be a touch of that. I think we've got to let bygones be bygones. We spent £12 million on the guy. We'd be lucky if we get £3 million back, to be honest, the way it's gone, such as last season, gone for him. So for me, he's worth holding on to, because we've got to try and eke something out of him, because we won't be spending a fortune in the summer, and I don't think striker is an area we particularly need to strengthen, with the guys still being at the club that we've gone through and mentioned in this video. So there's a player there, and there's a player there that's been very, very effective in the Championship for a number of years. So we've got to get something out of him. It can't always be that the players are the problem. Sometimes Aston Villa's the problem. So we've got to give him a chance, get behind him. There's a good player there, and I'm hopeful that next season that £12 million won't look like such a big waste of money as it does right now. So that's it. Matt and I have now gone through every player that appeared in an Aston Villa shirt in the 2016-17 season and summed up whether we thought they had a good season or not. If you did miss the previous goalkeepers, defenders and midfielders videos, then make sure you do check them out. They're still relevant now. Also, you may have noticed, or may not have noticed, that we've actually ventured into the world of podcasts now. They're available as audio and video, so make sure you check them out as me and Tom Julian talk over all the Aston Villa matters. If you could like, comment and subscribe with your post notifications on to this video, then that would be absolutely fantastic. We'll be back with more content soon of the Villa. If you enjoyed that video, why not watch another? Click the video choices on screen now to go and watch them in full. Be sure to subscribe to the channel by clicking our logo there on the left. Easy peasy.